Hello, welcome to Revenant Reads. I'm Vin, and this is an update for Book Trek 2024, where we're going to be talking about Yesterday's Sun by A.C. Crispin and the graphic novel Star Trek Year 5, Experience and Loss. So if you don't know, Book Trek is an annual reading event here on BookTube that I had created maybe about 4 years ago, and it's been going every year. Really, mostly it's turned into a summer event because for me, Star Trek has always been sort of a summer read. I'm a teacher, and one of the ways that I celebrate the summer is to have some light reading, basically Star Trek. This is like my version of a light beach read. And I have some great co-hosts going along with me. This year's Book Trek, the main function of Book Trek is to basically read Star Trek fiction. And throughout the months of June, July, and August, it's the Wrath of the Summer of Trek, or Summer of Book Trek. And that's all you really have to do to participate, is to read some Star Trek fiction. And that really does include this, and I would also include graphic novels as well. I don't care if people read that to count. We also have two optional away missions, one of which is to read some nonfiction science, and another away mission is to basically read things associated with Trek. This can be nonfiction about the production history. It could be a book written by somebody from Trek. It could be a parody of Trek, whatever it is, something that would not exist if not for Star Trek. So those are the two optional away missions. Today I'm talking about two books that I read really at the end of June, because that's when Book Trek starts for me, is when school is out. So at the end of June, I had read these two to kick off my Book Trek summer. Now, I'll talk, I guess, about this one first, and then I'll briefly talk about this. This one, I have, you can't see it, but I have a whole shelf of Star Trek books here that I can choose from. And this one had always kind of intrigued me. There's also a sequel to this book right here that I'm going to read in July. But this is Yesterday's Sun by A.C. Crispin. I believe this was actually the author, her first published novel, I think, was this. And she would go on to write a couple others, and she would have her own sci-fi series. Just checking on the date. This was published 1983, so pretty early on still in the, Star Trek publishing world, publishing history. They had only really been doing the official novels for a few years at this point. And this is sort of a sequel to a season 3 episode of the original series. I think it was called All Our Yesterdays, perhaps, where it's been a while since I've seen it, but if I'm remembering correctly, the Enterprise goes to a planet that has a star that is about to go supernova, and they basically beam down, and I think they're trying to get like the information out of the libraries, out of the computers before it goes off. But they find that the population of this planet has actually escaped using time travel to earlier periods in the planet's history. So everybody's able to survive, they just survive in different periods of time. But the crew of the Enterprise that beams down, they also end up getting stuck in different periods of time. And McCoy and Spock end up getting basically put in that planet's ice age, about 5,000 years previous. And there's a woman there who was from their own time period that had been sent back. I think her name was Zarabeth. Excuse me. You gotta excuse the coughing. About a month ago, I was sick and I had this chronic cough, and now if I talk long enough, I can start feeling that need to cough again. Just hasn't really gone away yet. I've heard a lot of people that have kind of had this same thing recently, and I don't really edit videos, so the coughs come with it, but those are free of charge. Spock, again, he goes back about 5,000 years, but it has a strange effect on him where it makes him revert to what a Vulcan is like 5,000 years ago. So he starts losing that kind of logical control. He becomes more emotional, and he ends up mating with this woman, Zarabeth. However, due to the conditions of the time travel device, she is not able to leave that time period, but he is. So he basically has to abandon her in the past. And this book posits the repercussions of that. What if she had gotten pregnant? What if Spock finds out that he had a son 5,000 years ago? What would he do? And very interesting premise here. So what we end up having is a nice, swiftly moving, fairly character-driven story. This is about Spock, and especially Spock's son. And I'm going to try to stay away from too many spoilers here, just kind of talk generally about it. But I got to give them, excuse me, away a little bit in the beginning. Spock, due to basically archaeological evidence, realizes that he has a son 5,000 years previous. And he gets an improbable way of use of the Guardian of Forever, which allows for time travel. That's one of the less believable aspects of the book, but otherwise it's just a minor hindrance for me. He does end up going back, and he retrieves his son. He finds that Zarabeth had passed away. His son is far older than he had expected. He's basically an adult in his 20s. So he brings, I think his name is Czar. I think that's the son's name. Brings him to, Star Trek's present at this time. And this cover, not a bad cover, but it's a little bit misleading. That looks like an old Spock from like the movie era, but that's not. This is supposed to take place really within the first 5-year mission. There's only a few years after that season 3 episode, which I would say is one of the better episodes of season 3. So, you got to picture Spock more from the original series, not the movie era, but this book came out during the movie era. And we see Czar adjusting. We see Spock trying to kind of wrestle with the fact that he has a son, and he did not have a son in sort of what Vulcans would consider a respectable or honorable way, it seems. And they're having a hard time connecting, which actually gives a nice opportunity for the unlikely but fun aspect, I think, of having McCoy be almost like the other surrogate father for this young man. McCoy ends up being more of a father than Spock is, and it's kind of cool to see McCoy step into that role. At the same time, a lot is going on with the Guardian of Forever. The Romulans know that something is there. They know that the Federation is hiding something, but they don't know what it is. So they are basically planning to attack that planet, and the Enterprise has to figure out what to do with this while not alerting everybody that there's like a time travel device on this planet. And like I said, I actually really enjoyed this. I thought this was pretty good. It's definitely making me looking forward to reading the sequel by the same author. There you can see the son, Czar, where, I don't want to give away exactly what happens at the end of this book, but it looks like Czar's gone through some changes based on that cover. But yeah, like I said, it's fast moving. It's very character driven. I thought that the Enterprise characters were actually pretty well written. Spock is complicated. He's frustrating, just like he was in the in the original series. And really glad I read it. It was a nice way to begin book Trek for me this summer. So yeah, if you have never read Star Trek fiction, you like the original series, I would definitely recommend this one. And I'll just briefly talk about this. This is, I think, the 4th. Yeah, there's 4 of these. This is the 4th one. So it's essentially a graphic novelization of what could have been the 5th year. Remember, we only got 3 seasons of the original series, so what would the 5th year have been like? And this is basically like the last couple of episodes if there had been a 5th season. And the artwork isn't bad. There's some pretty decent artwork. And we end up, that's actually a Tholian. We get a Tholian joining the ranks of the Enterprise, and it's kind of interesting. They have this kind of interdimensional intuition. But we have basically a mixture of stories, some of them better than others. We have one of them that is largely about like Kirk almost getting like a girlfriend and not sure if he's going to marry her, and we kind of cross through a lot of time, and that was okay. Then we get another one of Spock going back in time to Vulcan to find out some other things that were going on with Surak, the Vulcan who essentially taught the Vulcans to live logically and start to suppress their emotions. That there's a little bit more of a checkered history there, and that one was all right. Let's see. We have the big bad of this. I mean, he's mostly a villain, is a very interesting choice. It was, see if I can find a picture of him here. Gary Seven. He ends up being the big antagonist. He was in one of the original series episodes, and I don't really remember that episode very well. I think that was the one where Is that the one where they were gonna? It was almost like treated like a pilot episode for another series. I could be remembering that wrong. It was an interesting choice to make Gary Seven kind of the main antagonist here, and that storyline was okay. I did think there was kind of a cool twist of how it was all resolved. And overall, you know, if you like graphic novels, this was all right. I don't think you have to rush out and read it or anything like that, but you know, like all these things, they're really quick. They're just kind of fun. And this was okay. I didn't mind it. So anyhow, those were two that I read at the end of June for Book Trek 2024. Next in line is going to be this one at some point this month. Finishing up a few other books at the moment. And that's it. If you're taking part in Book Trek, I'd love to hear what you're reading. If you're just finding out about the event, you know, think about joining us. We're doing this all through the summer, all the way to the end of August. All you have to do is pick up a Star Trek book and give it a try. And yeah, that's it. So, as always, thank you, BookTube.